Experience is always better in a group. The Christian experience doubly so. We are just a group of gamers that love to talk about life, God, and video games in no particular order. So whether you're a newbie or a grizzled agent like us, we want to help each other roll the level.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Roll the Level, where we are going to have a conversation about life, God, and video games in no particular order. My name is Dame, and with me today are my good friends, Matt and Sarah. Sarah, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Just living the isolation life.
Living the isolation life. How are you? How's your sanity check been?
Wonderful.
Yeah?
Like, this is kind of my life in general anyways. Like, the only time I ever usually go outside is grocery shopping or walking Luke to school. So my life hasn't really changed.
Okay, so you're not terribly impacted right now.
No, not at all.
Okay.
I just have to cook for more people. That's it.
Oh, there you go. That works.
There you go. Matt, what about you, man? How are you doing today?
I am doing all right. I'm a little tired, dealing with a lot of tech research and a bunch of stuff with the company right now that we're trying to get squared up. And but other than that, I'm having my first cup of Death Wish coffee, so that's an adventure.
Hashtag not sponsored. So
Hashtag
is
not sponsored.
Is this the first sip right here?
Oh, and that's good. It actually is very smooth through the amount of caffeine in this thing. I'm quite impressed at how smooth this is. So that's good.
I'm worried.
So this is not a sponsored thing. This just happens to coincide. That's funny because you've been talking for some time to me about how much you wanted to try this coffee.
100%. Yeah.
So does it live up to you?
It does live up to my expectations. It's funny because Tara and I've been talking to Tara about like, hey, when we get low on coffee, I really want to try this Death Wish coffee. And so she, we were down to the last bag. And so I'm like grinding beans like crazy to try to get through it as fast as I can. Cause I know that when we're out of coffee, I get to order
churning it out.
Yeah, man, it was great. Like my poor old, my old bean grinder got so much of a workout in the last 2 weeks. I went through a whole like big bag of Starbucks in like 2 weeks. So it was great. So good times there. So yeah, so it's good. Things are good.
Now
That's
they
good.
are.
That's good to hear. Well, speaking of good, we are going to be focusing the episode today as kind of an extension of last week's episode. We talked a little bit about expectations and some of the things, some of the areas in gaming where we've had periods where there have been expectations that have been laid out. Some of them have been these just like really, really lofty things. And so for some there have been some disappointments. For others, there's like some really great things that came out of those expectations. But we saw this picture though of Jesus as he's entering Jerusalem. There's this big frenzy in the crowd of excitement and whatnot. And then there's some events that follow this, which by the time this episode is released, we'll be anticipating the celebration or the observation of Good Friday. The name Good Friday actually has always kind of struck me as funny, because when you look at it through the lens of the people that were involved in it, there's not a lot of good.
It doesn't feel very good. It's true.
It does not feel very good. Now, the outcome ultimately, which we're going to talk about next week, of all of this, is exceptionally good. It's exceptionally good news. But I want us to look at some of the different pockets of events that happen surrounding Good Friday, and try to put ourselves into those places. For me, and I'm going to have you guys think, and this isn't fair because I've been like processing this all week and I haven't really talked to you guys about it. So
okay.
I'm going to go first to talk about this, but I'm going to throw out there to you guys the question, which I want you to think about. And that's when you think about the events surrounding Good Friday. What are some of the key moments that stick out to you as the either the most challenging moments for you, like if you were there, or what are some of the most meaningful moments that are or relatable moments within that situation for you? I'll go ahead and start here. For me, it's watching Simon Peter throughout this entire thing. I relate a lot to Simon Peter just from the standpoint of like, he's usually the guy that talks without thinking about what he's gonna say, what he's saying.
Yeah.
He has like he's like got a 50-50, ratio of like sometimes he gets it, sometimes he doesn't get it, and so there's that tension with Simon Peter of, he made some really, really bold statements about Jesus. He was the first one of the bunch that really stepped up and was like, "Hey, I believe that you're the Messiah. You're the Son of God. You're the deliverer that God promised to us." Awesome declaration.
But Jesus also said some great things about him too. Like he gave him the name Peter to mean the rock of the church.
Like,
So,
hey, dude,
two-way.
this is solid. Like you're a solid dude. He also made that declaration of, Jesus, you're the only one who has words of eternal life. And then as all of this is going down, Peter, like, he struggled to really accept that Jesus was going to go to a cross, that he was going to give himself up and die. Like, he's the one that's like externally fighting this. Well, everybody else is kind of wrestling with this internally. Like, wait a minute. Like, we thought this was go time. Like, we thought that this Jerusalem moment was the beginning of this political revolution, this resurgence of Israel's golden age. Yeah, it's going down here. Like, this is the big league stuff, and we're on the front row with this. I mean, to the point where in the Garden of Gethsemane, when Jesus is brought in, or when there are soldiers that come to take Jesus, like, Peter draws a sword, hacks a dude's ear off, and is like, "No, it's not over. We're not done here." And his response is just, it's so visceral in all of this. And then there's the moment that is the most heartbreaking moment, and it's probably the one that I connect to the most emotionally, because there's this moment where Jesus is on trial, and Peter's kind of within eye shot of everything that's going on. Like, he's hovering, and there are a couple of people that come up to him and are like, hey, you traveled with Jesus, aren't you one of his guys? And he's like, no, you got me wrong. I'm not that guy.
You don't know me.
You don't know me. And he does this like 3 times, and there are a couple of the authors of the Gospels that record this moment where Jesus and Peter lock eyes, and in that moment, like, Peter knows, oh, I screwed him.
Yep.
Like, oh man, like, and it wasn't like Jesus didn't tell him this was going to happen too. Jesus, like, even tried to prepare him, like, hey, dude, there's going to be a moment where you're going to deny me
3 times before something crows.
Yeah. 3 times before the rooster crows. And that third moment, it happens. And I think for me, like, that had to have been Peter's worst day ever. And I think for me, like, I connect with that emotionally, because I think of myself, like, and wonder, like, in the times, and I realize, like, I'm my own worst critic, but in those times when I have willfully chosen to go opposite of where God is leading, or where I fought against God's leading, and realize, and in those moments, those heartbreaking moments of realizing that Jesus was only trying to do the best for me, and he always had my best interest in mind, even in those moments where, like, I thought I was I thought I was getting what I wanted. Part of my story, actually, my really taking this Christianity seriously here is those moments where I like built my empire around me of all of the things that I thought that I wanted and all of the things that I thought were good, and to see all of that crumble down and be angry in ashes, only to be restored by Jesus. And there's a beautiful moment later on with Jesus and Simon Peter that's another part of this story, but I just imagine in that day like what's going on. There's I'll think of it here. I'm going to throw this over to you guys, but there's a song that I want to bring up here. But I've talked enough. I'm going to throw it. I'm going to throw it to one of you guys here.
I can
So go for it, Sarah.
So I'm gonna go with grudges because I am very good at holding a grudge. And what I would relate to is probably the Jews having the chance to let Jesus go in the trial. Because every year they had, I don't know if it's every year, I'm going to get the details wrong, but Pilate had the opportunity, they give them the opportunity to release a criminal. So they had this awful criminal in jail, Barbaros, I think his name was. And they could have let him go or Jesus go. But it had to work out this way. I understand that. But the Jews had such a grudge against Jesus that they let the criminal, the awful murderer, I'm pretty sure he did other things too, but they let him go. And it's like, you really hated Jesus that much to let him.
Yeah. That's a good perspective. I like that. It's very good. Yeah, I think there's actually two elements of that story I have always found very, very interesting. And one is actually the thieves on the cross with Christ. I've always loved that moment because I think it just illustrates so well, the two responses when you engage with Christ, right? Like there's really only one of two options when you engage with Christ. You either fall down at his feet, in this case, obviously figuratively, but you just surrender everything and say, man, like I need you desperately, or you straight up turn away. It's that it puts into perfect framing, like the hardness of heart versus the brokenness of heart. And I've always thought that was an incredible moment to add, to be included in the story of the crucifixion on Good Friday. But actually the one that I've always found interesting, and it's like a one-liner and the whole thing. And it's so interesting because I've heard preachers preach on it, but not from the perspective I'm thinking of. But it's actually when Jesus kind of gives his mom a new son, through John, right? Through the disciple that he loved. And we always talk about like, well, man, Jesus was taking care of his family, and don't get me wrong, absolutely 100%. But what I think is most amazing in that is the relationship that John must have had, the type of person he must have been, the character he would have had for Jesus to do that, to be like, man, like I am entrusting my earthly mother to you. Like that's incredible to me. Like talk about like exemplifying the way of Christ to the point that Christ entrusts you with his mom.
Well, think about it from the other side too.
Yeah,
where like how much was the care for John too? Where he was just like, dude, I gotta make sure you're taking care of like mom. You gotta help him out.
It's true.
Well, I think about like our time in college together, Matt, and your parents really were like parents to me. When I was there. I mean, I remember countless times sitting down with both of them and just you know, having these heart to heart, and you know, sometimes your dad smacking me on the backside of the head because I needed it, and your mom's sitting there going, "Yeah, he's right. Listen to Greg." But yeah, I mean, like I think about the other side of that too, where it's not only the like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, we know. I mean, we know. Again, it's one of those things where like you don't hear a whole lot about him, right? He's just kind of in the background throughout most of the story, in the story of Christ in general. He's just kind of in the background. But like, there's those crucial moments where all of a sudden it's like, oh, and by the way, there's this John guy, and he's doing stuff, and it's awesome. And you know, I wish we had more of a glimpse of his life. I know there's other stuff that you can historically find and things like that, but I just wish we had heard more that would have brought him to the point of, or brought him kind of more to the forefront, because clearly there was a relationship there where there was that closeness, right? Because, you know, Dame, even using that analogy of like us in college, like my parents weren't like that for everybody, right? Because there was a closeness that we had that then translated into that relationship that you had with them. And I think that's crazy to me. Like, just to think that that's the type, you know, but it's also a really encouraging reminder that that type of relationship Jesus wants to have with us.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it's just a glimpse of the depth of relationship that Christ wants to have with us. And I've always just been fascinated by that. You know, that idea that this is the type of relationship that John had and with Jesus. And so it's just, yeah, it's really cool. Anyway, so that's kind of my thoughts on it. My initial thoughts.
Yeah. All good. Hey, I want to share with you guys. I want to share with you guys a song.
Mm-hmm.
That I really encourage you to go out to YouTube and find this guy. His name is Anderson Kersonis, and he wrote a song called "It Is Finished." And I don't know that I've ever heard anyone capture the heart of Good Friday the way that this dude did. Because like in the chorus of the song, like it says something about like you know, how could this be the prophecy, the same victory? He's dead as my grave. He's dead as my faith. He sits in a grave. He should sit on a throne. How could this be? Help me, God. Oh God, help me to see. And it's just this really like, it's this beautiful like lament that ends up turning around, but it really captures those 3 days in between the crucifixion and the resurrection. And I'd really, really, really encourage you to just as you're preparing yourself for the Easter celebration, like take a listen to that, because I think part of understanding the beauty of the resurrection is going through that season of death. I mean, there can't be resurrection unless there's death.
Oh yeah.
And so to have that moment of mourning, I think it's a really, really good practice to know how to grieve, and to wrestle with that side of the emotional spectrum of Christianity, because there is this really dark moment that is really good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But you have to get through that part.
Yeah.
There has to be Good Friday for there to be Easter Sunday. And so I just really encourage you guys, you know, as you're looking at celebrating Easter, or just, I mean, in general, like understanding your faith and understanding what you believe, it's really good to take a picture of all of this. And so anyway, I think that's where we're going to go ahead and leave things off. Sorry for the shorter episode here
No, it's
today,
good. It's good.
guys. But we're having a little bit of technical issues on a couple of different ends here, and some timing issues and whatnot.
good.
But good conversation. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to have it here this morning.
No problemo.
For all of you guys who are listening, thank you guys for tuning in. We would encourage you guys to make sure that you check us out on Facebook and on Twitter. We're at Roll the Level on Twitter. Go over to our YouTube page where we'll have videos of these podcasts, and you can actually see our smiling faces and sometimes a little bit of extra
It's true.
in the background.
It's good times. It's good times.
But anyway, we hope that this was encouraging to you, and we look forward to the next time when we can help each other to roll the level.